Welcome. We are tracing an intellectual lineage titled The Golden Thread. This presentation explores the genealogy of a complex idea, moving from a Christian paradox back to a Jewish principle. We begin in the heart of the 15th century Renaissance with Nicholas of Cusa. He was a German philosopher, theologian, and cardinal who found himself confronting the hard limits of human reason. He grappled with a fundamental problem: how can a finite human mind possibly comprehend an infinite God? His answer would introduce one of the most radical ideas in Western philosophy. Cusa's central concept is the coincidentia oppositorum, or the conjunction of the opposites. It proposes that in God, who is absolute and infinite, all the contradictions that define our finite world are resolved into a unity. In the realm of the infinite, contradictions like light and darkness cease to exist as separate opposing forces. To understand this, Cusa looks at how we think. The human mind understands the world exclusively through opposition. Our entire system of reason is built on categories like hot versus cold, large versus small, or being versus not being. In his masterwork, Docta Ignorantia, on learned ignorance, written in 1440, Cusa argues that when we apply this finite logic to the infinite, it breaks down. This realization is what he calls learned ignorance, the profound wisdom of knowing that you cannot know God through limited human categories. This paradox is not a failure of God, but a limitation of our own minds. Cusa illustrates this with a geometric example: when a circle becomes a line. Imagine increasing the radius of a circle towards infinity. As it grows, the curve flattens. A circle with an infinite radius has a circumference indistinguishable from a straight line. Therefore, in infinity, the opposites of curvature and straightness become one and the same. Cusa applies this logic to the divine. God is simultaneously the maximum absolutum, the absolute greatest, and the minimum absolutum, the absolute smallest. In the infinite, biggest and smallest are resolved into a single reality. God is the indivisible point containing all things, and the infinite expanse enfolding all things. It is a brilliant paradox, but we must ask, from where did such an idea arise? The thread leads us back to 12th century Cordoba. The roots of Cusa's learned ignorance trace back 3 centuries to the Jewish philosopher Rabbi Moses Maimonides. Historical records confirm that Nicholas of Cusa owned Maimonides' seminal work, The Guide for the Perplexed. This was a direct intellectual inheritance. Cusa learned negative theology, or apophatic theology, from Maimonides. The central tenet is stark: we cannot say what God is, only what God is not. Any positive description fails because it tries to cage an infinite reality within finite language. Why this negative approach? Maimonides was solving the problem of attributes. If we say God is wise and God is powerful, we treat these as separate qualities. But in our world, wisdom and power are different things. To say God has both implies he is composed of parts, and anything composed of parts is finite. Maimonides' goal was to protect God's absolute non-composite unity. Positive attributes are just concessions to human language. When we say God is powerful, we are essentially asserting that he is not weak. We negate a deficiency rather than affirming a defined quality. Here we see the synthesis. Cusa takes Maimonides' principle that God is beyond description and builds his coincidence of opposites upon it. Cusa agrees God cannot be light opposed to dark or good opposed to evil in the way we understand them. Because God is infinite, he is the reconciliation of both. We have found the architect in Cusa and the protector in Maimonides. But what is the bedrock this structure stands on? The source of the source is the principle of Echad 1. The entire Maimonidean framework is a philosophical defense of this fundamental Jewish concept. This is the bedrock from which the lineage flows. Echad is the final word of the central Jewish prayer, the Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. This is the theological heart of Judaism. But realize this: the one of Echad is not a mathematical quantity, like 1 as opposed to 2. It signifies an absolute, indivisible unity. God is not a collection of parts, he is a seamless whole with no multiplicity. Now the golden thread is clear. 1. The principle. Descartes insists God is a simple oneness. 2. The protection. Maimonides uses negative theology to reject any attributes that imply parts, protecting that unity. 3. The conclusion. Cusa realizes that if God is truly echad, infinite oneness, he cannot be defined by one concept to the exclusion of its opposite. He must be the reconciliation of all opposites. Here is the map. At the base, the source principle of echad. Rising from it, Maimonides, the philosophical protector. And at the summit, Nicholas of Cusa with the coincidentia oppositorum. We have traveled from a Jewish prayer to the heart of Renaissance philosophy. Cusa's famous paradox is revealed to be the philosophical expression of Maimonides' defense of echad. This journey demonstrates that Jewish theology is not isolated, but a foundational wellspring for the history of Western thought.